Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Casual Caffeinated Conversation. I'm super excited. I'm here with Amy. How are you this morning?
I am good. Thank you for having me on. I'm excited.
Oh, this is so fun. So we're going to play a game first. I'm going to say one word and you have to say the first word that comes to your mind. Are you ready?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Money.
Oh, stories.
Friendship.
Courage.
Community.
Proximity.
Connection.
Deep.
Mental illness.
Ooh. My reality.
Mental health.
It's on the rise.
Yeah. Perfect. Awesome. This is a one-word question. So you give one word answer to this question. Why is mental health a hard, scary topic to talk about?
Judgment.
Thank you. It's funny, this question, everybody has given a different answer. So I'm going to board together the answers because it's amazing that nobody said the same thing yet.
So, I'm actually surprised about that too. I would have thought you would have had a lot of repetition.
Yeah, me too. I thought so, but nobody has said the same word. Like we've gone from stigma to society, change to, and it just keeps growing. So we'll have this big, huge board for when we do the mental health event of all the words.
I love that.
On. It's super fun. How can you ask for help when they don't know how? This can be a long answer.
This is something that I'm trying to unpack right now, only because it is so hard to ask for help. We fear what other people will think. We're scared to look weak. We're scared to be needed. We're scared to be judged. We want to hold it all together all the time. And it takes a lot of courage. And I don't know the answer to this yet. Like, I really don't. I'm trying to unpack it. It's hard. It is hard to ask for help.
And to teach someone that it's okay to ask for help is also hard. And I think that in society, we weren't taught to ask for help. You're taught to suck it up. You're taught to move forward. You're taught to keep going. But how do you do that when you can't ask for help? And then teaching people that you can go ask for help. And I mean, we have lots of people in the community that are always saying asking for help is not a sign of weakness, right? And that's Jade's biggest thing. But how do we do that to people? It's okay to ask for help, and then it's providing a safe space. So how do they know it's a safe space? Because even when you go to your best friend and you say like, I'm not okay, if they don't know what to do, they're like, whoa. So how do we change that so people don't back up and they go, how can I help? Right? Instead of spewing out advice or whatever they're going to do, we need to find a better way.
Well, and it's crazy because you talked a little bit about, how do you hold space for somebody who isn't okay? And that's loaded in itself, right? But then it comes down to sometimes when we're not sure of our emotion that we're feeling, we actually don't even realize that we're not okay. And I can speak to that. Like, I couldn't put words to it. I couldn't label it or figure it out. And, I wasn't taught about emotions. I wasn't, I was told good, fine, covered up, rug sweep, all of those things. And now I'm like, we're doing fast track in this house with my kids, learning about how to label our emotions and how to talk about it and what does it look like. And, mental health and suicide and all of that is very real in our house. And so it's like, how do you hold space for that?
That's right. And you're not taught that either. So we have lots of things we need to fix in this space alone. That one, you can ask for help. Two, how do you provide a safe space? And what does that look like? Because nobody really knows. How do we provide that safe space for someone when they come and say, I'm not okay, instead of backing up? Ooh.
Yeah. Well, and it's true. And I remember so often that people would always do like a head tilt, and so, my husband passed away almost 9 years ago from suicide. And everybody would come up to me and they would do this head tilt and they'd be like, are you okay?
Yeah.
And I remember being like, are you kidding me? You're tilting your head and you're asking me, am I okay? What do you think?
That's right. Especially, like I am not okay. So why don't you just come forward and be like, how can I help you?
Yeah. Like maybe just hug me, or maybe just talk about the memory, talk about, different things.
Don't ask me permission, right? Ask permission. Can I ask you how you're doing? Can I ask you about what you went through? But
Yeah.
don't. We just dive right in and make it uncomfortable and awkward. And then when we say we're not okay, it's even more awkward because they don't know how to handle it. Like we have
true
learning to do, and in this space, it's incredible.
I had one lady come up to me and I'll never forget it. And she looks at me and she goes, you know, it's okay for you not to be okay. And so when you messaged me that the other day, I was like, she gave me permission to fall apart. She gave me permission. She's like, you don't have to be strong all the time, Amy. And I remember I started sobbing. And she looked at me and she was kind of like, oh dear, what did I just do? I just unleashed this. But I was like, thank you. Thank you for giving me permission that I didn't have to be strong, that I didn't have to fake it till I made it, that I didn't have to hold it all together, that I could actually fall apart and just be. And that was so big. And sometimes that's all we need.
That's right. And it's also about listening, right, to what's going on. It really is okay for people not to be okay. But so as people need to accept that it's okay for us not to be okay. And it's okay to show that we're not okay, instead of faking it until we make it.
But how hard is that as an individual? Because I know that I tell people this all the time. It's okay not to be okay. But then for me to go live that out, that's a different story, right? Because I don't know. It's that no, believe, do. I know in my head that I need to open up and talk about it and share, but yet it is the hardest thing to do.
Oh, definitely it is, because there's a whole bunch of things that go with that. If you're not okay, then what are you showing people, right? Showing them weakness, and that's what we've been taught. But you're not. That's the strongest thing you can do. Is you're not okay, and that it's okay not to be okay.
And then we're showing our kids too that this is now going to be the new normal. We're going to talk about our feelings. We're going to give each other permission to feel. We're going to hold space for all of these different emotions. None of them are bad. They're just emotions. And we need to figure out what's the root of the emotion, because then we can start unpacking some things and uncovering some things and working through them.
That's right. And that's so important. We need to do that more.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. Let's change the narrative. So if you could change the narrative around a word or a saying, what would you change the narrative around?
Suicide. And
how would you change that?
People just don't know how to talk about it. I find that every hush, it's, you know, and I, no joke, like I used to think that this is something that happened to people not like me, you know, and the fact that it happened to me and my family, I was kind of like, this doesn't happen to people like us. Like, no, and shame on me for even thinking such a thing, honestly. And it opened my eyes to how there is such a stigma and there's so much shame, you know, so much shame. Like I hid that for years. I hid it for years.
And do you think this is there because we don't talk about suicide, because we have labeled it as it's something that's bad, it's selfish, it's like we have all these words that go with the word suicide. So then it is shameful. And how do we talk about it? And how do we ask people about it, right? And it goes asking permission again. You know, like, how do you feel? Like, you know, people just don't know how to talk about it. And it's no different than anything else. This is a disease. This is something that's real. This is something people go through on a daily basis. And even if they don't commit suicide, if they're living with thoughts of suicide, it is huge. And it's something they have to fight every day. And we treat it so differently from every other disease.
Oh, and it's on the rise. It is so alarming and so scary. And it's so true, because we do think that I have been told like over and over, oh, that's so selfish. And I remember getting so upset and so angry. I'm like, have you ever thought that maybe it's selfless? And the person looks at me and of course the head tilt comes in, right?
Yep. What?
Right. And I was like, well, you know, if they're in that tunnel and there's darkness, perhaps they're seeing it, that they're doing the world a favor. And that's how they sometimes do view it. You know, I've talked to a lot of people and we've shared our story lots when it comes to this. And, you know, when you read other people's stories too, that have lived this, no matter where they are on what side, whether they're family or friends or the community or survivors, what have you, a lot of them say the same thing. Yeah. And it's about getting the stories out there. It's about having the open conversations. It's about learning how to ask the right questions.
That's right. And when someone says they're they're depressed or they're living with thoughts of suicide, do not tiptoe around them or treat them differently. And like, that's the biggest thing, right? Is, oh,
yeah. We moved 4 hours away to get away from our story because my kids were bullied in the school system when our story came out. It was crazy. I'm like, this is not okay.
No.
Nobody should have to feel like they have to hide their story or move away from a community because but it's true. Like, this goes on. Like, the aftermath is crazy and nobody talks about the aftermath either. That's what I've noticed.
Yeah, especially how it impacts kids, right? Impacts kids, family. Yeah. And if we're walking around going, this is so selfish, yeah, imagine the impact we're making on those kids and family members.
Yeah. And grieving is hard.
Someone, and now you're shaming them.
Yep.
Like, yeah, we're shit ass backwards.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Yeah. And what a hard topic, right?
It is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a hard topic. We need to change that. That will be our goal this year.
Yeah. Well, especially because it's on the rise, right? So we have no choice. We need to start speaking.
That's right. And we need to talk about it as if it is a cancer or if it is something else instead of shameful.
Yep. And bringing light to it, bringing light where there's darkness.
Yeah. So, and could you imagine being the person that's fighting your own brain every single day? Like, it's like the good versus the evil.
Yeah, it is.
Like,
yep. Absolutely. It is good versus evil, for sure.
Yeah.
And it just takes over.
And in your own head. So you imagine you could have the tools and medicines to fight everything else, but how do you fight your own mind?
Yeah.
That's the question people forget to ask.
Yep.
Okay. This year, my word is action. What is your word of the year?
Bravery.
Why?
Because I think it takes bravery to do life and to do life with other people and to share our stories and to change, we need to be the change in the world, but that takes bravery. It takes courage. It takes showing up. And sometimes showing up is hard.
It is.
Yeah.
It's so fun. I am super thankful you joined me today. I can't wait to continue this conversation because it does need to be continued and we need to keep fighting to break all of the stigmas, all of the shame around mental health. So thank you so much for joining me.
Yes, thanks for having me on.